Hi, hello, vanakkam, and welcome back to yet another episode on your favorite Little Law YouTube channel. So today in this video, we are going to see about Azure Load Testing, and this comes as part of uh, the Azure portal. And this Azure Load Testing supports Locust scripts, and JMeter, the JMX scripts. So these, for now, these two set of tests have been supported. So if you really want to run your Locust script, you can use the Azure Load Test, or if you want to run your JMeter testing. And in fact, we do have an option to do to set up the CI/CD pipeline as well. So this actually has a lot of advantage, and you can easily use the parameters, and you can pass the secrets, and you can do a lot of things by using the load testing. So for this, in this particular video, I will show you how to create a resource, and how to run a load test using a single request. Say, for example, if you were uh, using API requests, right? So you can try creating your GET request. You can try running your POST request. So I'll show you how to do that in this particular video, and then after that we will see how to run create a load test with JMeter script, and then we'll see how to create a load test with the Locust script, and then we can see how to automate the load test with Azure pipelines. So for now, I will show you. So in this video, I'll show you how to create a Azure load testing resource, and how to create a URL based load test. So before we move on to this, this Azure load testing is a fully managed load testing service. So this is not a tool or something. This is a kind of a service which we can enable to generate high scale load. We can uh, so we normally, right, so every one of us will have a confusion, like I have to execute 1 million load test. How can I do it? Or I want to run a 10,000 users load test, and I want to run master, slave, this, that, distributed. You don't need to worry about all that. You can use this where for your JMeter as well, I am saying. So you can use your entire load in this system. And in fact, there is another option, like you can distribute your load generators in different Azure centers, and you can use that. So you don't need to worry about the distributed load test. You don't need to worry about distributing the users into different machines, the masters, the slaves. You can even run, yeah. In fact, I was discussing about the 1 million user test. Even you can try running 1 million user load test using this Azure load testing. That's even possible. Like I'll show you to do that. I mean, you don't need to worry about the licensing part here, right? So that's one main advantage of using this Azure load testing. So it's very simple. Like you can upload your test script, and this Azure load test, as I told you previously, it supports Apache JMeter based tests and locust tests. So for example, your test plan might consist of multiple application requests, and you want to call non-HTTP endpoints, or you're using input data and parameters to make the test more dynamic. So you can use the Azure load test. And if your application is hosted on Azure, Azure load testing collects detailed resource metrics. Say, for example, the CPU utilization, the memory utilization of the Azure machines, because since everything is on the Azure platform, or the Azure network, or I would say the Azure family. So to capture the application performance regressions early, we can add our load test in the CI/CD. So even we can do, like I said, we can even do the CI/CD workflow as well. So everything is possible here in terms of your Azure load testing. So firstly, as a first step, I'll create a Azure load testing resource, because without having any Azure load testing resource, we cannot run the load test. So it's something like uh, a service that will hold your load test scripts, and it will help you to generate your load. So first for that, so let me just show you. So log into the portal, and then go back to home, and if you can even search for Azure load testing, or you can even select this, do a bookmark. You can create a dashboard, and you can save it there, like for example Azure load test. You can create new like this, and you can add like Azure load test, and click create and join. So anytime when you come back, go to your dashboard, select your Azure Lotus dashboard, and you can see here. That's it. It's so simple. So now let's create our Azure load test. I mean the resource. So let me go back, Azure load testing, and let's create the Azure load testing resource. So I have a resource group already, which is Little Slug Cloud, which I'm going to use it for this. And the name for this is going to be test one Little Slug. And I'm going to use the region as East US. And I'm going to click on next. And in this encryption type, I'm just having the Microsoft managed keys. And there is no customer managed key. So I'm just using the Microsoft managed keys, which is the default one. And then clicking on next. So here I'll add a value and it will be test. So any testing resources that we create should have the tag as test so that you can easily segregate them or you can easily distribute differentiate them when compared to other resources. So this is again a best practice. That's it. So then next, so it's doing a validation, a basic validation to check whether the subscription is fine, the resource group is okay, whether there any other name with the same test name and the region and then the encryption type and the value. So everything looks fine. And let me create the load testing resource. So now I'm creating the service, which is like a SaaS, the service as, sorry, service is a platform or something like that. So uh, let's wait until the service is getting created. So once it's created, then we can start creating our first load test. So by the time I'll tell you. So how does this work? How does this architecture work? So we are uploading our script into the resource, and then we have the test engines, and the test engines will help us to run the test. And in fact, if there are any dependencies, like if there are any app services or if there are any Kubernetes, and it will even in fact communicate with the application insights, the virtual machines, the storage account. So it even connects to everything, and then finally all the data are transferred to the Azure monitor. So this is how the Azure load testing works. So now I think, yep, the resource has been created, and let me click on go to resource. Yep. So now I have got the resource created. So it's so simple. So far I have created the resource, not the test. Just differentiate it. So firstly, you have to create a resource, which is the so like the one I showed you here. So if you go inside your Azure load testing, you will see this one, which is the Azure load testing. So this is the one which I have created. And then inside this, I'll have to create a HTTP request. So we have three options. One is for API. So if you are creating APIs, you do not want to rely on any tool. You can just come here directly, just post your request, add the body data, send the request, and that's it. It's going to be like running fine. And if you are someone like who is having a JMeter script ready with you and you want to upload the script and create your tests, yes, you can do it. And in fact, like finally, if you want to run your if you want to set up your CI/CD pipeline, yes, we can even create that. So for now, I'm going to create a HTTP request. So now I'll show you how to create a GET request and a POST request and run a load test, and we will do again comparison. So there are a lot of things again uh, in comparing to JMeter. So this actually comes up with lots and lots of advantage in terms of showcasing our results and everything. So we'll see that one by one. So I'm going to click on create, and then so this is going to be a URL based test, and we can add any number of requests to it. So the test name is going to be URL based test, or even you can name it as like API testing. Okay, okay, fine. That should be okay. And I'm adding as the description as API testing and run test after creation. I'm just okay, run test after creation. So once I created this test, automatically the test will start. So if you do not want to run like that, then you can disable this so that you can create your test, and after that, whenever you want to time, you have time, you can just go and run that. So for now, let's choose that option. And debug mode, no, we are not going to run this in a debug mode because this is not how we are going to run, because everything is already working fine. So we are going to just directly going to run the test and clicking on next, and we are now in the test plan, and let's add the request. So for now I'm going to use my JMeter request, and in fact, yeah, like I told you, we can take the inputs from the UI, or else if you have any curl commands also, like you can use that. For example, if you um, have some request where you're using a curl command to get some values, you can use that as well here. So for now, I'm going to use my get request. So I'll name it as 01 underscore get underscore request. And let me go back to my JMeter. And here I'm going to select these transactions. So the first transaction is the click on sign in transaction. So the URL is pasted, and then this is a get method, and there are no data. So like you see, there is no data that's getting passed. So it's just the um, yeah. In fact, if I want, I can add the cookie data, but for now, I do not need that. And request headers. Yep, there are the headers available. So let's create it. And then the referrer. And if there is anything that has to be encoded, you can even choose that as well. And then the priority. Yep, I understand there are like a lot of headers for this request. And then the accept. We have few more to add. So the user agent. So for now, in this example, I have used Mozilla for recording. So that's the reason you could see the Mozilla as my user agent. And then again at the end, it's going to be, yep, it's almost completed for now. Yep, finally the host. And yep, I think we are done. Yeah, so we have added all the request headers. There's nothing in the body, it's just the URL. And yep, so with that, okay, let me add this request for now. Okay, I'm really sorry I have added these in the query parameters, but they are supposed to be in the headers. Yeah, let me just quickly pass, and then I'll do all that in the headers, and then I'll come back now shortly. Yep, so now I have changed the headers, and now I'm going to add this request. So now I have added the request. See if you can see here, the 01 get request is added. And in case if you want to remove, you can choose this, and if you want to make some edit, you can choose this. And like I said, for API requests, you might not have these many requests, so you can just have these many headers. So it will be very quick. And then I'm going to add the other request, and this is going to be a post request. So I'm going to add like 02 post request, and then the URL. I'm going to use the URL from here. This is going to be the URL, and yep, obviously the URL and the HTTP method is going to be post, and then the post data. I'm just going to copy the entire data from here, and then going to the body, I can choose like I have different options. I can choose as raw data or JSON view, or if it is a JavaScript, you can run even a JavaScript, and if you have a HTML, you can run it, and if you even have a XML, you can do it. But for now, I'm going to choose raw data as my data type, and I'm going to just paste the entire content here. So which has my username, my password, my sign in, source page, and everything like whatever I have recorded or whatever I have for this particular request. And then I will paste the headers, and then we can move on to the next step. And for now, let me go back to the request headers, and here I have the headers. I'll just quickly copy this, and then we'll move on to the next step. Yep. So for now, I have created my get request and my post request. So in case if you have like multiple get requests, multiple post requests, this is the same way to do it. And in fact, if you have any variables, like for example, if you are passing some parameters, so you can upload the variable folder here. In fact, I will show you that in a separate video, in the next video, like how to do parameterization using in the Azure Load Testing. So that we'll see in a separate video. I don't want to confuse you with a lot of information in the same thing. And for now, yep. So I have uploaded my get request and my post request. I'm going to click on next, and I have nothing to add here. So these are like non-sensitive parameters which are exposed as environment variables for access by the load test engine at runtime, and we can use the environment variable in our request. So for now, I don't have anything to upload here like the secrets or the certificates, and I'm going to just select the system identity as my identity type, and clicking on next. And here I can choose the engine instances. If for example, if I want to choose like multiple instances, if I say for example like 3 instances or 4 instances, I can choose here. And the engines is something like you can choose for your test. And for now, yeah, okay, by default, I think they have given us like just only one engine. And then, if you remember, for example, you can do the load testing using linear, and you can use your stress testing by using step. And if you want to do a spike testing, you can select spike. So for now, I'll show you how to do the load testing. So we'll see that here we have a lot of things to see. So for now, just going to show you how to do the load testing using the linear method. And yep, so here the multi-million dollar question: what if I want to run a load test with more than 1 million users? So 1 million is like 100,000. Yep. So now the value must be between 1 to 250. So since it's a limited load, so I'm able to run with 250. And another point here is the instances. So for example, if I have one instance and if I'm running 250 users, it's like 250 is a load. And if I have two instances, so that is I'm running the load with 500 users. So it's like in instances multiplied by the concurrent users per engine. So for example, like it's mentioned here clearly that concurrent users per engine, so which is if I have two engines, then it's like 500. So totally I have 500 users. And then I can set up the duration of the test. For now, I'm going to just select 5 as my test duration, and the ramp up period is going to be 1 minute, or we can just set it up like 5 minutes so that the ramp up will increase. But for now, the total duration is 5 minutes, so I'm just going to keep it like for just 1 minute. And then, like I told you, the engines can be set up for any number of times. So if we want to increase the uh, engines, we can raise it. It comes as part of your subscription, so you can raise any number of instances. And like for example, if you have like 10 instances, and then if you are running with 10,000 users, automatically you can reach 1 million users. So for now, I'm going to just, for now I do not want to like load the test, because this is something like a test application which is being provided to us, so I don't want to just kill it. So I'll just go with 10 users for 5 minutes. And this is going to be a load test. So how to run your load test using Azure Load Testing for the API. So this is going to be a API load testing using Azure Load Testing, right? And then the load. So for now, I have chosen two engines, so which is like 20 users will be running the test. So you can see here. And if I want to add more engines, I can add. So for example, I can click apply, and if you see the engines has been divided automatically because I have chosen two engines, and they are being distributed. So now 10 users will be running in the first engine, and then the other 10 users will be running in the other engine. So if I do not want to run like that, and if I delete it automatically, it will be running in the same mission. So Sorry, let me choose the other engine as well for now. Yep, otherwise I can just make the change here. Yep, I do not want the other machine. So yep, now for now I'm going to just run all the 100 user load tests in the same machine with two engines. And then what about the traffic? So if you want to run your test in a public network, you can try this. So for public is something like the real users, and if you want to run this in your private endpoint, you can do so. Private endpoint is something like which is inside your network, and it's not exposed to the external world. So that's the reason between the public and the private endpoint. So if it is again, I'm reiterating you. So if it is a public endpoint, you're going to run your test in the public, which is like the real users because they are not inside our internet and they were the external users. And if it is like private endpoint, it's going to be inside your VPN or your private endpoint, which is the Azure private endpoint. Now I'm going to click on next. And if in case if you want to set some test criteria, for example, to set like the SLAs, I would say the service legal agreement, service level agreement, sorry. So for example, if I want to set my response times, the average response times, if it is like greater than 3 seconds or so, like if this is in milliseconds, I have to choose 3000 as my milliseconds. And then for the first request, so if it is a get request, if it is more than 3 seconds, then I make it as like fail. So that's the reason I'm just setting this up. Then again for the second transaction also I can set it up. So if it is like more than, again the same thing, 3000 seconds, I'm setting up it as fail for the second post request. And auto stop test, yes, the test will automatically stop if the error percentage is high for the specified time window. So if it is like more than 90%, automatically the test will stop and the time window is 60 seconds. And then let me move on to the next. So if I want to add any monitoring resources, I can add the resources, and if not, I do not want to add any resources. And if this is something like, for example, if your application is hosted in a app server and that app server is in your Azure, you can just choose that VM and the CPU and memory utilization will be automatically monitored. So yep, you're done. You do not want to have app dynamics or dynatrace or anything like that. You can just monitor your CPU and memory, but that will not give you information like dynatrace or like app dynamics. It will just show you the metrics of CPU, memory, network, input, output, disk, IO, everything, right? And yeah, so we are done. Go to next. Everything is done. The validation is passed. So yep, here you can see the test has been created, and we can see the test ID and all the details. And now let me start running the test. So I'm going to give it as round one or round 01. Then I'm clicking on run. So this, so once again, I've started the test now, and currently the test is in the provisioning state, and after a few minutes, so this provisioning is something like it has to pick up the right engine for doing the test. So there will be like a kind of initial set of provisioning that happens before you run your test, which is something like you have to, because if you remember, we have selected the East US missions for running the test. So it's something like a load generator. So it has to provision all those aspects. And once it is set up and everything is ready, and we get a mission or we get an agent to run the test, and then the provisioning will be successfully completed and it will move to the next stage, which is the execution stage. So let's wait for a few more seconds, and then once it has moved to the execution stage, we can see that test will start successfully. And meanwhile, let me show you a few important things before the test starts. So here at the end of the test, we can download the input files,
Hi,
the
hello,
logs,
vanakkam,
the
and welcome back
results.
to yet another episode on your.
And in fact, yeah, now the test has moved to the execution status. And here you can see a message that the test run will start shortly. So that's again a message that we can expect the results anytime sooner. And we can see we have got one instances and we have disabled the debug mode. So in fact, I will show you how to use this debug mode and what will happen if you are running your test in a debug mode. And yep, if you click on the app components, you can see what are the components we have configured for. But for now, we haven't configured anything, so we don't see any of the components as part of this app component part. And if you want to stop your test, you can use this stop test to manually stop your test. And this refresh will just refresh your screen. That's it. So nothing else to do here. And once you're okay, so I think we have got the engine health. So the CPU percentage, the machine that you are running your test. So you can see the CPU percentage is very low at the moment, and then the memory is also very low because you were executing a very little load. Coming back to the load test results, we are yet to get the load test results. And let's wait a few more seconds. And but meanwhile, if you see the CPU percentage, the network bytes, amount of network byte that we sent and receive during this test, and then the memory that we are using. So if you see the engine one, it's almost occupying 14% of memory during this test, which is like, if you can see, an average of 12.87. And let's move back to the load test results to see whether you are able to see the load test results, and it has not yet been started. So let's wait for a few seconds to get this loaded. Yep, so we have got um, the test data. So if you see here, we have got the two requests. One is the get request and the other one is the post request. And here you can see the request, the post request, the get request. So let me just choose only those. So you can see we have got 10 get requests and 10 post requests, and then the response time here. So this is very easy for you in terms of viewing the response time. So if you can see like clearly what is the response time of the get request and what is the response time of the post request, and how many requests per second has been sent. So this is in fact it's kind of better, a kind of an improved way to view the results during your testing. And you can even see if there are any spikes or if there are any dips in the response times or in the request per second. So immediately you can check into this application and see how does it behave. So this is another way of it's kind of an improved UI, the user interface to watch your results. So let's wait for a few more seconds till the test gets completed, and then we'll move on to the next steps. So now the URL based test has completed, and we can see we have got around 2,183 requests that's been executed, and um, with a response time of 100, and the throughput is 17.89. And same with the get requests here, and then the total of get requests and the post requests. And then we have got the test criteria, the response times. So since we have got the response times lesser than what we have set as the threshold, so since again they have also passed, then we have got the response times, the virtual users, how many requests that we sent during the test, and what's the response time of these during the test, and then the request per second. So everything went fine. So the test looks fine, and then yep. And finally, as I told you, so here we can download the results, and we have options to go to the report, so we can download the report as well. And yep, so with this, I think we have completed, we have covered the running of the test. And then if we really want to rerun a test, we can do a rerun. And then if we want to do a comparison also, we can do a comparison as well to compare like how much response has been increased, and how much test has been like, what's the performance during the first test, and then during the second test, like round one and round two. And then moving on to the logs part. So let me open the logs for you. And this is what you get in the results screen, where you can see the response times, the timestamp, at what time did it get executed, the elapsed time, the response code, the response message, the thread name, data type, success, failure, and all these information. But for now, I would say that having the responses, the response times, is a better way of, like, this will help you to understand the response times, like how much time does it take for each of these responses. So we'll see in our next test on how to create. And before that, let me show you one more thing which I just wanted to show you. So for example, if you have your test, like the URL based request, and if you want to convert this to a JMX test, you can do that as well. Like if you want to really use that as in your JMeter, even you can do that. But the point here is, it clearly tells you that once the test is converted, you will not be able to revert back. So please ensure you understand the implications. So this, if you really want to convert it, you can do it. Otherwise, you can have a kind of a backup, and then you can uh, do this conversion so that you can see how does it work. So yeah, so this is another option which, because if you have your locust test, I think you can even convert it to your JMeter and you can set it up in the JMX format. So yeah, I think with that we come to an end, and I believe this video will be very useful to you. So in our next video, we will see how to run a JMX test using the Azure Load Test. So until then, it's bye bye from Vatan Shanmugam and if you're at Little Law YouTube channel. Bye bye.